My son is 6. A couple of weeks ago, we were driving home from my parents' house after Sunday dinner. He was in the back seat, half asleep, hugging the stuffed dinosaur he's had since Christmas. Out of nowhere, he asked, "Dad?" "Yeah?" "Why does Grandma hate Mom?" I looked at him in the rearview mirror. "What?" He repeated it. "Why does Grandma hate Mom?" I laughed. "She doesn't." "She does." "What makes you think that?" He shrugged. "She's nice until Mom comes into the room." Nobody said anything after that. My wife, Emma, just looked out the passenger window. When we got home, she took our son upstairs to get him ready for bed. I stayed in the kitchen longer than I needed to, because the more I thought about it, the more I realized he'd noticed something I had been ignoring for years. My mom had never been rude to Emma. Not once. She never yelled, never insulted her, never started arguments. If you met them for 5 minutes, you'd think they got along just fine. But if you stayed longer, you'd notice little things. Mom would ask me if I wanted another drink. She'd ask my brother if he wanted dessert. Then she'd look at Emma and say, "Could you bring the plates in?" Nothing awful. Just different. Emma was always treated like a guest who'd stayed a little too long. Later that night, I asked her, "Has my mom ever said something to you?" Emma didn't even look up from her book. "No. So why would Noah think she hates you?" She smiled a little. "Kids notice everything." "That doesn't answer the question." She closed the book. "Your mom doesn't hate me. Then what is it?" "I don't know." "You do." She was quiet for a few seconds. Then she said, "It's not important." Whenever Emma said something wasn't important, it usually meant she didn't want to talk about it. So I dropped it. At least I tried to. The next Sunday we went back to my parents' house. I decided not to say anything. I just watched. For the first hour, nothing. Mom laughed with Emma while they cooked. They talked about Noah starting school. Even joked about my terrible barbecue skills. I actually felt stupid for overthinking it. Then Emma walked outside with Noah to help him find a football he'd kicked over the fence. The moment the back door closed, my mom sighed. My aunt noticed. "You okay?" Mom nodded. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." She forced a smile. I'm just tired." That was it. No comments about Emma. Nothing strange. But the atmosphere changed. As soon as Emma came back inside, Mom smiled again. Like she'd flipped a switch. On the drive home, I asked Emma again. "Seriously, has something happened between you two?" She looked at me. "No. You're lying." I'm avoiding the conversation. "Why?" "Because it's between me and your mom." That got my attention. "So there is something." She didn't answer. A few days later, my mom called while I was at work. "Can you come by after work? Everything okay?" "Yeah. I just need help moving a cabinet." When I got there wasn't any cabinet. She was sitting at the kitchen table with 2 mugs of tea. "I thought you said you needed help." "I did." "With what?" She looked at me for a long moment. Then she asked, "How are things between you and Emma?" I frowned. "They're good." "Are they?" "Yeah." "You hesitated." "I didn't." "You did." I laughed. "Why are you asking?" She stirred her tea, even though she'd already added the sugar. "I just worry." "About what?" She didn't answer. Instead, she asked, "Do you ever make time for her?" I frowned. "What does that mean?" "You work a lot." "I have to." "I know. But do you?" I leaned back. I don't understand where this is coming from. She looked like she wanted to say something. Instead, she stood up. "Forget it." "No." "You brought it up." She shook her head. "It isn't my place." As I was leaving, I reached for my jacket. That's when I heard voices coming from the hallway. Emma. She'd come to pick me up. I hadn't even heard her pull into the driveway. Before I walked around the corner, I heard my mom quietly say, "How much longer are you going to pretend you're happy?" I stopped. Emma answered so quietly I almost missed it. I'm not pretending. Then my mom said something that made me freeze. You're protecting him. But who's protecting you? I stayed where I was. I knew I shouldn't be listening. But I couldn't make myself move. Emma spoke first. I'm fine. My mom let out a quiet laugh. No, you're not. A few seconds passed. Then Emma said, You don't have to worry about me. I do. I've watched this for years. Watched what? I stepped into the hallway. Both of them turned toward me. Emma looked annoyed. My mom looked disappointed. You heard that? I nodded. Apparently. Emma grabbed her keys. I'll wait in the car. Emma, she didn't stop. A few seconds later, I heard the front door close. I looked at my mom. What was that about? She sat back down. Nothing. It didn't sound like nothing. It's between me and Emma. No. If it's about my marriage, it's also about me. She looked down at her hands. I don't want to do this. Then why bring it up? I didn't. You literally asked if we were happy. She sighed. Because I don't think you are. I laughed. We're fine. Are you? Yes. When was the last time you two went somewhere without Noah? I thought about it. I don't know. When was the last time you had dinner together? We eat together. No. I mean just the two of you. Again. I couldn't answer. She didn't smile. She didn't look satisfied. She just looked sad. You've become your father. That irritated me immediately. What does that mean? He worked. He paid the bills. He thought that was enough. It wasn't. My dad wasn't a bad husband. I didn't say he was. He loved you. I know. But he stopped seeing me years before he retired. I stared at her. She continued. He'd leave before I woke up. He'd come home tired. We'd eat. He'd fall asleep in his chair. Every single day. I crossed my arms. I'm working because we have a mortgage. I know. And a kid. I know. So what exactly are you accusing me of? I'm not accusing you. I'm asking if you've noticed your wife. I didn't answer. Because honestly, I wasn't sure what she meant. She stood up. You should go. I'm not leaving until you explain. She looked straight at me. I've tried talking to you before. When? She gave me 3 examples. She wasn't wrong. Every time she'd asked if I was working too much, I'd laughed it off. Every time she'd suggested taking Emma away for a weekend, I'd said we couldn't afford it. Every time she'd asked if I was tired, I'd answered, I'm doing what a husband is supposed to do. She nodded. And every time, you ended the conversation. The drive home was quiet. Emma was focused on the road. I kept looking out the window. Finally, I asked, Why didn't you tell me? She knew exactly what I meant. Because she'd promised not to. So you've talked about me. We've talked about you. How long? She smiled sadly. Longer than you'd like. That hurt more than I expected. So everyone knew there was a problem except me? No, you knew there was a problem. You just thought it was normal. I looked at her. What does that mean? She kept both hands on the steering wheel. It means I got used to coming second. I felt something twist in my stomach. What? She glanced at me. If work called, you answered. If Noah needed something, you were there. If your parents needed help, you left immediately. But every time I asked for an evening together, you'd say maybe next week. She wasn't angry. She wasn't raising her voice. She was just tired. I didn't realize. I know. Why didn't you tell me? I did. When? So many times that eventually, I stopped. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, I stayed downstairs. I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I opened the drawer where we kept old photo albums. The first few pages were from when we were dating. Weekend trips. Random selfies. Birthday dinners. Then I noticed something. The photos became less frequent after Noah was born. After that, almost every picture was of him. School, Christmas, the zoo, birthdays. There were hundreds. Then I realized something else. The last photo of just me and Emma was almost 3 years old. I sat there staring at it. She was smiling at me. Not at the camera. At me. I honestly couldn't remember the last time she'd looked at me like that. The next morning, I got a text from my mom. I shouldn't have said anything yesterday. A second message came a few seconds later. But someone had to. I read my mom's message 3 times. But someone had to. I wanted to be angry. Instead, I kept thinking about that photo. The last picture of just me and Emma. 3 years old. The next morning, I left work early. I told my manager I had something to deal with at home. He looked surprised. You've never asked to leave early. I know. When I got home, Emma was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open. She looked confused. What are you doing here? I took the afternoon off. She smiled. You sick? No. I think I've been an idiot. She closed the laptop. What happened? I sat across from her. I want you to answer one question. Okay. When was the last time we did something together? She thought for a second. I don't know. Try. She looked at the ceiling. Our anniversary. That was 8 months ago. I know. Another silence. Finally, she laughed. I honestly can't remember. Neither could I. That bothered me more than anything my mom had said. I looked around the house. The walls had photos of Noah. His drawings were on the fridge. His football boots were by the door. Everything in our life revolved around him. Which isn't unusual when you have kids. But somewhere along the way, Emma and I had stopped being a couple. We'd become 2 parents sharing a house. I owe you an apology. She looked surprised. For what? For thinking paying the bills was enough. She didn't say anything. So, I'd like to ask you something. Go on. Do you actually want this marriage? She looked almost offended. Of course I do. Then why didn't you fight harder? She smiled sadly. I did. I just stopped shouting. That one hurt. Because she was right. Looking back, she had asked. Not once. Not twice. Hundreds of little ways. Can we watch a movie tonight? Want to go for a walk? Let's have dinner after Noah goes to bed. I miss you. I always had an answer. I'm tired. Maybe tomorrow. I've got overtime. We'll do something next weekend. Eventually, she stopped asking. Not because she stopped loving me. Because she stopped expecting the answer to change. I reached across the table and took her hand. I'm sorry. I know. No. I mean it. I've spent years trying to build a good life for us. And somewhere along the way, I stopped living it with you. She squeezed my hand. I wasn't perfect either. You don't have to. I do. I should have told you how bad it had become. I should have stopped pretending everything was okay. We sat there for a while. No arguing. No blaming. Just talking. Really talking. That weekend, we asked my parents if they could watch Noah for one night. Mom smiled before I'd even finished asking. Of course. Dad just grinned. Took you long enough. Emma laughed. It was the first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in a while. We didn't go anywhere expensive. We drove to a little pub about 40 minutes away. Had dinner. Walked by the river. Talked about everything except work, bills, and school. On the way home, she reached over and held my hand. She hadn't done that in a long time. A few days later, I stopped by my parents' house. Mom was watering flowers in the garden. I owe you an apology, I said. What for? I thought you hated Emma. She looked genuinely confused. I've never hated Emma. I know. I just figured it out a little late. She smiled. I've always liked her. Then why were you so cold with her? She looked down at the watering can. Because every time I saw her, she looked lonelier than the week before. I didn't know how to help. So you talked to her. I listened. That's all. Before I left, she put her hand on my shoulder. I wasn't trying to take your wife's side. There aren't sides. You're family. I just didn't want my grandson growing up thinking that's what marriage looks like. A few weeks later, Noah climbed onto the sofa between us while we were watching a movie. He looked at me, then at Emma, then smiled. "I think Grandma likes Mom again." Emma laughed. "So do I." I smiled. The funny thing is, my son was wrong from the beginning. Grandma never hated Mom. She just noticed we were drifting apart, long before either of us did.